Hello guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the podcast. We are very happy to have you guys here today. We are clearly in a different setup. We thought it would be fun to record this one in the car. So let us know what you guys think about the setup. If you guys like the car scene, we'll definitely make some more in here. But for today, we wanted to touch on two different topics. They're both really fun and I feel like we have both learned so much in these areas and we just want to share our hearts on these topics. The very first one is going to be how to detach from someone emotionally, and then we're going to move into how to build your self-confidence as well towards the end of the video. So let's start off with detaching from people emotionally. I just want you guys to know that if you are struggling with detaching from someone, you feel like you literally can't stop thinking about a person, or you just can't imagine ever living your life without them, and this could be whether you are with them in a relationship, or I feel like the times that we struggle with this is usually after we let go of these people, right? Where either we know this is not the person for us, or we're having a hard time getting there. But it's a difficult process once you build a deep and intimate connection with someone, whether that's romantically or even in friendships, whatever the case may be. It's hard to let go of that after, right? So we just kind of want to talk about that specifically and how we get to the point where, yes, we do find freedom from that attachment that we have to people. So let's start off with like our experiences. Like I said,
how long does it take you to get over someone or something?
For me, I feel like it's different, because if you ask me how long it's taken, probably like 10 years ago when I wasn't so emotionally mature, or when I didn't have the experience that I have now, it probably took me a lot longer. I'd say about like months to get over someone. And really for me, it was like romantically. That's really what I'm talking about, because I haven't really lost a lot of friends, or actually I have lost friends, but I wasn't too emotionally dependent on these people or attached to them. So it wasn't like a deep emotional connection that I had to detach from. My emotional attachments were in relationships. So in the past, when I was younger and I would break up with people after emotionally attaching to them, it was so difficult for me to let go. It would take about months, I think even to a year. My longest relationship after I left it, I took like a year to heal from that. And then from there, all the other relationships, I feel like I was a little bit more experienced, and then it went down a lot more to the point where I'm at now, where I can be well, actually I'm a lot more careful about who I get emotionally attached to, so that way it's like not that hard to even practice now. But if I do sense a little bit of attachment and having a hard time of letting go of people currently, it's a lot easier for me to let go. It's a lot quicker for me to let go as well, because you just mature in so many different areas. You don't think the same. You learn from every past experience, and if you're intentional about everything that you're going to do moving forward and you don't want the same results, then you start moving a different way. And I feel like that's what I've been doing lately. So yes, it did take me a very long time to detach from people in the past, but with time, if you're intentional about the things that you're going to do, it gets a lot better. So anything that requires a lot of strength, a lot of work, or anything that you want to see good results in, there's one thing I've learned in life, is that it takes time. Like, it's not something that's just going to come from night to day. So I kind of like wrote a little bit of like steps that I feel like I took when it came to detaching emotionally from people. So let's start with the first thing that I think we should focus on, and that is, what is your attachment style? Sammy, do you feel like you know what your attachment style is?
I read a book about it, the one that you gave me, and I think that I'm anxious, but also I have part of secure attachment style.
Okay,
so
perfect. So when I was reading the book, I felt the same way. I felt like I was anxiously attached a lot more in the past, but then I could also see that current day, because I read it, like I fully finished it about 3 weeks ago. I was like, I identify a lot with the secure attachment style, but I can see that I was very much not secure, and I was very anxious. So pretty much like when you are anxiously attached, you are, I mean, literally anxious about being with someone, and the way you move in a relationship is always to keep that person with you, because you always feel like they're gonna leave, or you feel like something's gonna happen that's going to just make
pretty
this not
much
work
are a
out.
pleaser, no?
Exactly.
That's what anxious is.
Read the book. We'll go ahead and put it on the screen. I'll make sure to put it in the middle or put it down below for you guys. I know I said I was gonna do that last time. I didn't do it. I'll leave a link down below for you guys to read the book so you guys could kind of understand what we're talking about, or just more videos for reference. But yeah, so we were both anxiously attached then in the past, right? And now we're getting to the point where we're a little bit more securely attached. And the very first step that I say that is, you know, realizing what your attachment style is so important, because I feel like that was one of the main things that has gotten me to the point where I am securely attached. I learned about this concept years ago, and it was after I had left a very toxic relationship and I was trying to like understand everything that I was going through, and I came across this video of this psychologist explaining the concept, and I'm like, oh my gosh, all of the men that I have dated in the past have been avoidant. Like, they have been to the T avoidantly attached. And me, I've been anxiously attached, and it's always been kind of like a fight for me, begging people to treat me right and begging people to stay with me, and them not being here for me emotionally and not being present in the relationship. So in that, I started researching a little bit more, and I figured out where our attachment styles come from. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm attracted to these people because of the way that I have always been taught to navigate relationships, or to navigate my attachment, because attachment styles come usually from the way that we are raised, or what we're seeing at home, or how our parents are treating us. So once I started learning about that, I'm like, okay, there's reasons why I'm attracted to certain people, and it's not because I'm crazy, because I feel like that was very common for me. I thought, like, there's obviously something wrong with me because all of my relationships are not working out. And it wasn't that. It was the fact that, like, girl, you have things against you because of the way that you were raised. But it's also like, don't turn into a victim. Don't let those things define you, because you could also, once you discover those things, you could switch it around and you could start building yourself into something better. So figure out your attachment style. Figure out if you're securely attached, if you're anxiously attached. Go ahead and figure that out and research about it, just so you get a clear understanding of your background, where you're coming from. And then also, there's different types of materials for every specific type of attachment style, and how to fix those things.
I was also a anxiously attached person, but I feel like we've been working on ourselves. And since then, I read this book not too long ago, and then I saw that I identify more with the secure attachment style. And what is that? I feel like we all want to get there at some point. Because what is this? Like, you know what you're bringing up to the table. You know
what you have to offer.
Yeah, what you have to offer, and you know the way you treat people, because that's the way you treat yourself too.
I think it comes a lot from self-love and what we advocate for all the time.
You are emotionally available for whoever is gonna be with you, and you're not being insecure about if it's gonna be cheating on you or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, you trust them. Yeah, wholeheartedly. Do you feel like you've dated guys who have been avoidantly attached before?
Not dated, they were just a fling.
Okay. But what like describes in avoidant?
Okay, an avoidant people, it's someone that is gonna show you sometimes that he's kind of there. This person is kind of there, but not really. Like, they're gonna step backwards. How do you see it?
Yeah.
They're gonna step back.
They'll take a little step forward, and then they'll take a little step back, and they'll take a step forward and a little step back. They're
gonna step back when they see that things are getting deep, or when they see that they're getting a little too attached. They're gonna try to avoid you. That's so weird, but that's an issue, because they should know how to handle this type of things. Otherwise, don't be with nobody.
Exactly. That is so good. And then also, just like you said, they have their reasons, and that's why I feel like it's important to learn about attachment styles, because we understand those reasons. We understand that there's a reason why the avoidant is the way that they are. We understand that there's a reason why the anxious is the way that they are, right? I feel like I've definitely dated people who have been avoidant in the past, and it's important to say that this really comes with like the emotional aspect too.
Yeah, they don't usually talk about their emotions, or they don't take the accountability. They just blame all around. Whatever is around them, they're gonna blame that, but not what they're doing.
And it's a lot more common than we think for people to be avoidantly attached and still be in relationships. I don't think they should be in relationships, but it's so common to see, because you can have a relationship and not be fully there.
Yeah, and also those people, they kind of don't want to be alone.
Yeah,
Like they cannot be alone with themselves.
Now, if you read the book and you see where it stems from and the studies that they do, like psychology studies and stuff, you see that they were probably neglected in the past, and that's why they probably have this deep want and need and this void inside.
When they receive a genuine love from someone, they don't trust it. They're just like, oh, I can't believe you don't love me like this. Like,
Exactly.
no,
Yeah.
I can't believe this.
It's just not true. Because again, when we're talking about their backgrounds and usually how they were raised, they didn't have that that security in their life. They was always like, okay, sometimes mom's here and sometimes she's not, or maybe there's no mom, or like every situation's going to be different. I don't want to say that 100% because you didn't have a mother or this and that you're going to be avoidantly attached. That's not what I'm saying, but it's just like, if you didn't have security in your life growing up and it was always yes and no and ups and downs and stuff like that, an emotional roller coaster, you can't really trust and believe. It's against your nature to trust and believe that people want the best for you.
Deserving of that.
Yeah, and so like, let's say in avoidant attached is with the securely attached, and the securely attached is the people pleaser that always wants to have somebody's attention, always wants to be with someone. Like, that person is trying to pour into that avoidantly attached person so damn much, and the avoidant person could probably see it and see like, okay, well, yeah, this person's giving me a lot and they're here for me and stuff, but they can't fully ever grasp that because they're like, well, they're probably gonna leave me, or I'm not deserving of this.
Yeah, they're always wondering what's gonna happen, huh?
And the anxiously attached person is never gonna stop pursuing them. Like, they're never gonna stop begging them for attention because that is their very nature. They're not secure, so they have to like literally fight to be with you. And the other person is always gonna be like, well, you're not gonna fully stay. So it's just like a cat and mouse game, and it's a toxic cycle that it turns into, really, and both people are getting hurt from it. The goal is, at the end of the day, to be securely attached. That is what we should be striving for, okay? Two securely attached individuals who probably were anxiously attached before, or who probably were avoidantly attached before because of how they were raised and stuff, but they were adamant about fixing those things and learning about those things, getting to the point where they are secure, and then they come together and create something beautiful and something stable, where they're not insecure, where they're not constantly thinking that one of them is going to cheat on the other, where they could trust and believe that they have something beautiful because they have both worked towards that beautiful thing.
We want to give you hope today.
Yes.
That we can all change and we can become better. And even if you're in a toxic relationship right now, you can make it great.
Yes.
Greater? ¿Cómo se dice?
You can make it better. You can improve the relationship, and honestly, like, there's hope for everyone. Like we were just saying, we were super anxiously attached before. Do you think we just figured it out and we're like, okay, well, we're anxiously attached and we're just screwed for the rest of our lives, so we're just gonna stay here? No. And it's the same thing for anybody else who identifies with any other attachment style that's not healthy for you. You can change it. You can get to the point where you are securely attached. That is an opportunity that we all have in our hands. So you know what, there's hope for everyone, and we are all deserving of beautiful relationships. There's just so many things that we have to get in check first to make sure that we could be in those beautiful relationships. I also want to talk about another step that we have to take when it comes to detaching emotionally from people, and I think this one is probably one of the most important ones. I want to hear your opinion on this, but I think it is to set boundaries. Okay, if you feel like you're in a situation where I can't let go of this person, I'm so attached to them, the thing that's going to be your best friend is going to probably be a lot more practical things than you would think, but those practical things come in setting boundaries and putting kind of like little parameters that aren't going to give you the opportunity to reach out to that person or have this emotional connection with them so easily. So what do I mean by this? If, like, for example, after I would break up with guys and I was still super emotionally attached to these guys and I would have a hard time letting go, it would not benefit me to still have those guys on social media and constantly seeing what they're doing, and would also not help me to still have an open communication with them where they could call me at any time, where I can text them at any time. And no matter how much progress I was making, if those things were still out in the open, and or like those guys still had the opportunity to talk to me, I would always see that I would fall so quickly. Like, I could work on myself a lot and then a guy texts me and he's like, oh, I miss you, and I'm like, oh, damn it. you know, like we have to be intentional about these things, because we emotionally, and when we're talking about emotions and just like our nervous system and attachments and stuff like that, it's common for us to get attached to people. So we have to work against what is common, what's our routine, what's
and even when we are
nature.
attached to someone, like most of the time, and it's just science, it's not your fault, but most of the time your emotions depend on them.
Yes. I will also say that not so long ago I was watching a podcast about what happens to us when we have sex, and like what literally happens in our brains and bodies and the chemicals that are going off. And so when we're talking about romantically, I'm not just talking about when you're having sex with someone, but when you love someone, right, and you're in a relationship with them, there's certain hormones and stuff that are going off inside of your body. And a lot of the hormones that are going off, or not, I wouldn't really say hormones specifically, there's like another word for it, but the things that are going off inside of your, like the chemicals going off inside of your head, are things that, for example, when mothers breastfeed their children, I forgot which specific hormone it was, but that's going off when they're breastfeeding their child, and that's also one that's going off when you're having sex with the person. And when you're breastfeeding your child, it's to nurture your child and to build a bond with your child. So it's the same thing, like when you're
creating a bond to these
exactly
person.
When we're in romantic relationships, we're also creating bonds, and sometimes we don't realize that, but there's so many deep things going on behind the scenes from when you're with someone. So of course, when you get to the point where you're trying to let go of this person 100%, it's going to be difficult and it's going to require some hard work. So that's why we have to practice discipline in these areas. Discipline is a word that I used to hate so much, because it literally would force me to do things that sometimes I didn't feel like doing. And that's what it is. You have to work against your feelings sometimes. And in these situations where you know that you have to detach emotionally from someone, you have to be disciplined. You're gonna have to go against what you feel like doing sometimes. Yes, you want to answer those text messages. Yes, you want to call the person. Yes, you want to see what they're doing. But you have to be disciplined and not do that, because if you do that, it's not going to benefit you. You're always going to fall back. You're always going to be in a cycle, and you're never going to let go of this person. So when I'm talking about set boundaries, I literally mean block the person out of your life. I'm not here to play games. I'm really not, because my life and my feelings are important, and I'm tired of feeling attached to someone. That doesn't feel good. It feels like hell sometimes. Like it's
unhealthy.
Yes, and it's unhealthy. It's just not a good place to be in overall. So because of that, and because you realize the gravity of it, you have to be even that much more intentional about all of the steps that you're going to be taking. So literally, whatever that means for you, go ahead and do it. For me, it was blocking people. I had to take people off of social media because it didn't help me to have that around me. I was always going to be thinking about them. And once you start respecting those boundaries and actually going through with them, and yes, sometimes it's a process. Sometimes you unblock them for a little bit and it's like, let me just see what could happen, and then you block them again, right? It's a process. Be gentle with yourself, but the more disciplined that you are, the faster you're going to get over that person. You start to see that you put all of these things, all of these boundaries into play, and then you're like, oh, I didn't think about them today, because you're not feeding that to your brain. If you're constantly feeding your brain with this person, obviously you're not going to let go of them. Like, it's not going to be possible. It's common sense, but sometimes common sense isn't so common, or sometimes common sense just goes against, again, our feelings. So yes, I think that's definitely something that I had to do, with set boundaries. Do you feel like setting boundaries helps you as well?
It helps you to focus on your present, pretty much, and to learn how to love yourself also. Like, it all comes into place, and it's all like part of the same process, I will say.
Yeah.
If in order to detach from someone, you gotta, I don't know yourself and know your necessities and know your needs, and
know that you could supply your own needs. Because when you're attached to the person, in a way, it's kind of like you're looking for them to fill a void. And when you realize that that void doesn't get filled by other people and it gets filled by you, then you're like, oh, something clicks in your head of like, I'm looking at this completely wrong. I'm looking at this person as a means to for survival, when in reality it's not like that. All you really do need is yourself. Okay, and we benefit from being with people, and yes, it's a beautiful thing, and I think human interaction is amazing. if it's done right.
Sí.
But when it's something that you know is not right and you are unhealthily attached to somebody, you realize that it's a lot better to get to the point where you love yourself and you could be enough for yourself so you don't depend on these people. So 100% that was one of my steps. Was
it's a waste of your time.
It really is. But that was one of my steps of like, you have to get to the point where you love yourself, because you start working on that self-love and supplying your own needs and being enough for yourself. Then you're like, okay, I don't need this person to survive. I can live without them. I can live with myself. And then you also are elevating your self-worth when you're loving yourself. You're elevating your standards. And now you also realize that perhaps the person that you were emotionally attached to was probably not a person who was good for you, was probably not a person who actually was up to your standards.
Don't meet your standards at all.
Exactly. But you can't get to the point where you realize that unless you work on yourself first, unless you love yourself first. If you don't love yourself, if you're not building yourself up, then obviously you are going to accept anything and you're going to think that that person is necessary in your life. So it's vital for you to get to the point where you love yourself in order to detach from people. Also, this is just the last step for detaching from people emotionally, at least for me, was to redefine what it is that I want in my life. And I said this will make you not attracted to the treatment that you were receiving before. So when I say redefine what it is that you want in life, is really sit down and ask yourself, like, what do I look for in other people? What makes me feel good? What makes me feel loved? And what can I offer to other people as well? Because once you define this and you relate it to what you were settling for in the past, you realize that you are settling and that you require so much more from other people, and you require so much from yourself even, right? Because everything that you require from other people, hopefully you're also pouring into other people. So redefine your life, ask yourself what it is that you want, and that's going to keep you determined moving forward, and it's going to make you realize that maybe the attachment that you had to this person was something that really was just destroying your life and there was no benefits in that. So you're gonna let go of it just naturally.
It also helps when you experience with other people right away, maybe.
Okay.
When you go out with people and when you get to know other people, it helps you a lot to distract yourself, I guess. But
that is very important. I actually
but at the same time, deep down in there, of course, it's gonna be that wound. Wound? How do you say?
A wound.
Yeah, I feel like it's very important to just get to know more people, hang out with them, surround yourself with different vibes, I will say.
100%.
Different energies. And
yes, it's so important. I like that you're mentioning that, because I feel like that was one of the main things that helped me get over like past relationships. I'm not saying like go be with other people, like connect emotionally with another person.
Could be, but it's not healthy. It's not like 100% healthy, because you're gonna have two wounds now.
Yes. So don't do that. Don't go connect with another person emotionally when you're trying to get over another emotional attachment. Like, that's just not gonna happen. But more so, it's just like meet new people, have new experiences, and really focus on the relationships that are emotionally healthy, right? So I would hang out a lot more with like my friends, and I feel like that really does heal your heart after letting go of a person who you were attached to in a negative way, right? Focus on the good things that you do have in life, and if you don't have them and you're like, oh well crap, I was emotionally attached to this person and I have nobody else in my life, then honestly create new
relationships. Friends. Make friends. I don't know, be confident about it. Just if you want to be friends with someone, just ask, or I don't know. Yeah,
I mean, let's talk about it. Let's dive right into building your confidence now, because it kind of relates to what we're talking about. So I kind of want to talk to you guys a little bit about my experience with confidence, and if you want to say a little bit too, and then we could talk about how we have built our confidence up. But I do want to let you guys know premise, like, first off, I wasn't always somebody who had like super high confidence at all. Like, I struggled a lot with my confidence growing up. It wasn't just physically, like, yeah, sometimes it was physically of like things that I didn't like about myself, but I don't think that one hurt as much, or it was like as intense as like other things, like deeper things like mentality and just like status and stuff of that sort. I feel like I lacked a lot of confidence depending on the areas that I was in, because or like honestly with my culture, because I felt sometimes that I didn't have other people around me that had the same culture, so they didn't understand me, and I always felt like I was less than. And the things that I would watch on TV and movies and just like media in general, I always thought that my culture was something that was like like lower than other cultures, if that makes sense. That was just my personal experience. I grew up around a lot of people who had a lot of money, pretty much, like that's really what it was. And then that wasn't something that I viewed a lot in my specific culture. So then when I was around these people, I would hear certain comments about like Mexicans and stuff. So that was my experience of like, okay, well, maybe I'm not as good as other people. And I feel like that's where a lot of my lack of confidence came from. And so for a large portion of my life, I felt like I was down here and other people were up here because they were different ethnicities, or they had different like financial statuses and stuff like of that sort. So I was very insecure in that way. It wasn't about my looks or anything. Me, it was more so about like my background and who I was. But do you feel like you struggled with self-confidence?
I don't know, I feel like my only insecurity was interact with people in a deep way, you know, like intimacy.
Oh, okay.
That's like so messed up to me.
Yeah.
And
okay, I see that. I can see that.
And I don't like to be vulnerable with other people.
Because I know you have mentioned, we've talked about it before, growing up, you always kind of felt like, oh, you know, I'm beautiful, like you were secure in yourself in that aspect. But confidence works in different ways. It's not just about like, oh, well, I feel good about myself and I think I'm cute and I'm confident. No, confidence is in so many different things. She's talking about her confidence in an emotional aspect of an intimacy aspect as well. Like she wasn't confident enough to open up emotionally about things, perhaps for her own reasons, right? And that was her experience. And then my experience wasn't about looks and being confident in like the way that I move around and stuff. It was more so about status, right? Or like my background and stuff. So it's gonna be different for everyone. And I think it's important to have that conversation about confidence. Is like, when I would think about confidence before, it was always about the way that I looked. So I would say like, oh yeah, I have high self-confidence. But it's like, there's so many other things that go into having high self-confidence. So, I mean, that's kind of a little bit of our background, our experience with self-confidence in the areas that we struggled in. But do you feel like you're in a better place with your self-confidence now?
Well, yeah, now I feel like after all these bad experiences that I had, they're not bad, you know, but after all these experiences that I had, they helped me to build up this confidence, vulnerable wise, I will say, you know. So I feel like I'm more confident now being in intimate situations, you know.
What do you feel like got you to the place where now you feel more confident and open with people?
All these experiences that makes you feel like you don't want to feel. I don't know, it wakes up something in you that you're like, okay, I gotta change this, you know. And that gave me the strength to be where I'm at now.
Yeah, I love that. That's the beauty of life, and that's why I say sometimes pain is beautiful, because pain is the very thing that gets us to the point where we want to fix stuff. And once you start fixing stuff, that's the very means for you to become a better person and grow and become stronger. So 100% I agree with you. And if I try to think about the ways in which that I transformed the way that I had confidence, it did start with like, I don't like how I feel. I don't like the results that I'm getting from not having confidence in this area. So what can I do to better this? And then you start researching different ways and stuff. But like for more practical things, I guess, if I were to tell somebody.
So every day I try to compliment myself.
Okay.
And it's just, it doesn't have to be physically, like that's the last thing that I think about. Just, I don't know, compliment yourself about the way you think, the way you do things, the way you treat people, and
your heart, your mind, your soul, like the very things that make you who you are.
Authentic.
Yeah, and don't be afraid about hyping yourself up in those aspects. Sit down with yourself at the end of the day. This is something that I always do, is I think about things. What did I like about today? What did I not like about today? And then what am I proud of myself for today? Right? And so I'm practicing digging deep into, you know, just good things about myself and figuring out what those good things are. And it becomes a little bit more normal because we're humans of routine. So once you start doing it more and more, now you're like, oh, I did this today, and it's just like, oh, good job, Diane. Like, that's something I congratulate myself throughout the whole entire day, and that makes me move in a different way, 100%.
Yeah,
because you have your heart at the forefront. You know your values, you know your worth, you know who you are, and you know that it's something beautiful. But you can only get to the point where you realize that it's something beautiful when you're aware and when you do digging. So I think little exercises like checking in with yourself and seeing, okay, you know, this was a really good thing that I did, like, good job me, like a little golden star for yourself today, is very much necessary. Another thing that I said in my notes was like, I don't know if this has helped you out too, but it's like getting out of your comfort zone and doing things that you probably weren't comfortable with doing before. Obviously things that are good and healthy for you. So for example, like, try a different class out, try to hang out with a new group of people that you probably wouldn't hang out with in the past. It is like getting outside of your comfort zone and trying things that challenge you a little bit, because I grew so much in my confidence after doing things that I thought I could never do. And once you do them and you see that you were able to do them, it's like, oh wow, like, I do have the ability to get things done, if that makes sense. Like, one of the ways that I could describe this was, for example, I was always raised being told that I was weak. Like, that was just something I always heard in my family, like, you're frail, you're weak. Maybe it had something to do with my body because I was really skinny, but they're like, no, you can't do sports and you can't do any crazy things, and don't even think about like going on that hike or doing this thing because you can't do it. Like, no, you can't. You're weak, right? You're so small and tiny. So I'm like, okay, fine, I'm weak. Like, so my whole life I always thought that I was just a very weak-minded individual, and I thought I was just weak in my physical ability too. So I remember when I first got like my very first tattoo, and that was such an important thing for me because I didn't think I would be able to, because of everything that I had always heard, like, you're weak. I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to with the pain. Like, I was just so terrified. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, when I get there, it's gonna be the worst. And then I went and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And it was something that made me uncomfortable. At the end of the day, I'm like, I have to do it. And I also wanted the tattoo, obviously. I'm not saying that I was being forced against my own will to get the tattoo, but it was something that like challenged my comfort zone. And so I did it, and I realized, like, once it was done, I didn't even realize it was done because I didn't feel a damn thing. And like, now I don't, you know, yeah, I get tattoos and stuff, but like, it doesn't hurt. But I've always thought that I was a weak person and I wouldn't be able to, you know, withhold like those kinds of things or like pain and stuff. And then you do things and you're like, okay, one, you're like, that's pretty cool, I did it. And two, I'm not as weak as I thought I was. So I'm just like, the reason why I say this is challenge yourself to do things that get you outside of your comfort zone, because maybe, just maybe, there's something on the other side. Maybe, just maybe, you realize that, oh wow, I'm actually really good at this, or wow, like, this thing that I thought about myself is actually not true. And you break those walls down and you build yourself up as a person, and you become more confident in turn. So I think that's another practical little thing that has really helped me out, is doing things that I thought once I could never do. And sometimes I do those things and I realize, well, maybe this isn't for me, but it still feels good to know that I tried it out.
You're gonna see the difference about the way that you look at yourself now.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna see yourself with more love, I will say, or compassion, or whatever.
100%. I also think it's important to humanize people. The way that you do this is by hanging out with more people. Just like we said in the last point of detaching from people, that was one of the stuff, like, last stuff that we said is like, oh, hang out with more people and get to know more people. But also what helps so much in getting to know more people is that you realize, and if you're open about being vulnerable with more people as well, and honestly be vulnerable with the correct people and really reconsider. We want to make another episode on like choosing the right friends and stuff, because I feel like that's super important. But once you start hanging out with more people and you have deeper conversations and stuff, you start to realize that we're all struggling. Like, we all have difficult lives. We all have things that we struggle with. We all have things that we want to fix. We all just are human beings. Like, that's just life, right? So I feel like it has helped me so much to interact with different people and be vulnerable and open up about our mistakes and the stuff that we have a hard time with, because then we realize, like,
you get inspired by them, no?
That too. You do get heavily inspired by people. But for me, it's been like at the end of the day, we're all the same. You also don't have this thing where you're insecure, or you don't compare yourself to other people, because you realize that, like, at the end of the day, we're all just human beings. Like, there's no one who's better than the other person. We all breathe, we all sleep, like, we all poop, we all pee, like, straight up.
No, girls don't poop.
Except for girls. But we're all the same. But you can't realize that we're all the same unless you're adamant about creating relationships with people and friendships with people and being vulnerable with people. That's why I try my best to be authentic with people and to be so straight up with them when I mess up. And I never want anybody to think I'm perfect, because I would hate for somebody to compare themselves to something that isn't real, like to a fantasy, right? Because I'm not perfect. Nobody is perfect. And I feel like once we realize that nobody is perfect, there's no means for comparison. There's no means for being insecure, because you realize we're all the same. So at the end of the day, we just want to let you guys know that it is 100% possible to detach from people emotionally, and we're here for you and we're rooting you on. And then also it's 100% possible to transform your self-confidence as well. The camera is about to die, so we do have to let you guys go right now, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let us know what you guys thought about it in the comments down below, and also go ahead and follow us on Instagram, because we are posting a lot of reels and we're going to ask you guys your opinion on upcoming videos.